So again, good morning. So this is chapter 2, the scope and classification of surveying. So all the context of this presentation, you can find it in the DAO 98-12 in DAO 2007-98. Last time I posted the lecture video of the chapter 1, which is on the definition of terms, in your activity 1, which in you are going to present some topics in DAO 2007. So next week will be, I am expecting that all of those are by partner Badto. So all of the pairs are going to present their outputs. So by the first half of the midterms, we make sure that all of the lectures will be conducted before you focus on the main task. So I am hoping that for the final term by November or month of November and December, you will be focusing only on the exercises on the main task. So ma-focus na kita on main task. So in order to focus on the main task, we will discuss all of the lecture first on the prelim terms and the midterms para dire-diretso ka na mo pag during the final term. So uubusan tatayan na ang mga lecture para dire-diretso na pag-perform in yung mga exercises sa main task. Okay? So again, let's start. By the way, the recitation. So we will be conducting a recitation again, I think by next week na lang. So we can hold it now since another topic is guti pa lang. So I will provide the activities for chapter 2 on the Google Classroom. So the chapter 2 will related to this lecture that we are going to present this morning. Okay? So this is the scope and classification of surveying. So last time I discussed what are the properties, definition of terms in between the properties, the overview of the procedures of conducting the surveys, and some of the terms that we are going to use in this subject. So the objective of this presentation I have here. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to classify the different types of land surveys, determine the persons authorized to perform the surveys, and distinguish the different instrumentation or what are those instruments that being used in conducting specific surveys. So the first topic will be the classification of surveying. So what are the types and surveys that we are going to conduct? So mostly in general, so land surveys are used to survey properties, either agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial, and any other. So these surveys are categorized. We have the main category. We have the isolated land surveys, the cadastral, and the geodetic. So I know you are familiar with the geodetic and not so familiar with the isolated and the cadastral. So we're going to discuss differentiate between the three. So pag sinabi nating isolated surveys, so these are surveys conducted for isolated parcels. So itong mga survey na kinakonduct kung yung property is either agricultural, residential, yung mga industrial, commercial, and resettlement and other purposes. So those are, ang tawag sa in general term, na survey na ito is called an isolated survey. So yung isolated surveys naman are subcategorized into either public land surveys, mga private land surveys, subdivision survey, relocation, and so on. We have the government land surveys. So those are isolated. We have the conversion surveys and other land surveys. Right. So Let's start, again, we have public land. So let's start with public land. So we're going to discuss the subcategories for the isolated land surveys. So let's start with public land survey. So these are surveys, original surveys. So when we say original, not yet surveyed by from the past. So first time someone na siya na survey, that is an original survey. So original survey of land of the public domain in which belongs to the public, classified as inalienable and disposable pursuant to the public land laws. When I say alienable and disposable, these are properties that can be disposed and alienated by a certain individual, or in a layman's term, pwede siya ma-owned by a certain individual na public property siya. So in which pwede mo siya applyan kung gusto mo, if you are settling on a property in which nakapublic pa siya, for example, agricultural land, tapos hindi pa nakapangalan sa inyo, nakapangalan pa sa government or sa public, Republic of Philippines pa yung owner ng property. So you can apply for registration on that property as long as yung mga requirements upon application is applicable sa inyo. So when we say alienable and disposable, so these are yung public land survey may subcategories, either number one, either alienable and disposable. Yung isa naman is inalienable. So yung hindi pwede i-alienate or hindi pwedeng applyan ng registration ng isang person or ng isang organization. Yung mga inalienable, so yung hindi pwede ma-dispose ng property, example, yung forest. Another is yung mga timberlands. Another is yung mineral lands, because everything with mineral or resources is belongs to the public domain. We have the national parks. Hindi yan pwedeng i-rehistro sa isang private or isang individual. And other lands with natural resources. So si alienable and disposable, isang category lang ang pwede nating i-alienate and i-dispose na property, which is yung property na agricultural. So no other than that, no other classification of lands which can be alienated or disposed to other person is only agricultural. So yung mga agricultural land ang pwede nating applyan for registration. Once gusto mo mag-apply. So these are lands by the public domain na pwede nating ma-own. So the agricultural. So sa private land survey naman, ito yung mga survey that conducted upon the request ng mga private na client. So pwedeng owned by certain individual kung meron kang private property. So pwede kang pa-survey. Ang tawag sa general term ng survey na yon is private land survey. So yung private land survey, pwede rin siya sa mga partnership, mga corporation. For example, mga Ayala Land, yung kanakandak mo na survey doon is private land survey. It could be subdivision, relocation. So as long as the property is owned by a private individual. So undertaken for the use of original land registration proceedings pursuant to the provision of the 1529. So CPD 1529, if you're not yet familiar, we're going to discuss this in the property registration decree. So this is other known as the property registration decree. So the third is a government survey. So from the name itself, the government. So yung survey mo is intended for the government purposes. So these are all original surveys of land administered by or belonging to the national government or any of its branches pursuant to the provision of the Friar Lands Act. So when we say Friar Lands, any idea of what is a Friar Land? May di kita outsider. Hinoy Mary Rose Balintong. Then ka na yan account. Mary Rose. Hello, Mary Rose? Kan ka na yan ang account and Mary Rose? So anyway, so when you say for prior lands, so these are lands owned by the government since it is acquired from the Spaniards. Ito yung mga property na owned by the Spaniards in long, long time ago. So, yung nagiging owner na ng mga lands acquired by the Spaniards was acquired by the national government. So, yung mga survey na kinakandak ng mga properties in which yung property is under Papay Friar Lands Act. So, yung survey na yon is categorized as the government land surveys. So, si conversion surveys, ito yung surveys when we say converting graphical cadastral lots into a numerical cadastre. So, on the past, yung kinakandak na cadastral survey is through graphical. When we say graphical, they take a photo, aerial photo of the one municipality. After they take a photo of a municipality, they do is drawing ng nila ang boundaries ng mga lots. So, yung bearing and distance of the property is determined only by graph. So, by drawing or graphing. So, in the new sense na may nakitaan available na mga instruments that can cater survey of several lots na may nakita GPS, GNSS, may nakita mga instrument. So they converted this graphical cadastral into a numerical cadastre. When we say numerical, nahandak na yung pag-determine ng bearing and distance ng mga lots within a municipality is conducted na in actual ground survey. So yung graphical, hindi ko sa actual, nasa aerial photo lang, dinodrawing yung mga lots. How about in the numerical cadastre is conducted the actual ground survey and yung bearing and distance are being computed na. So with computation and so on. So yung atin namang other land surveys, so marami pang types of survey and that's why hindi lang limited sa property survey yung GE. So there are a lot of activities or that the GE could offer. We have determining the political boundaries, verifying or delegating prior survey, so relocation. If we are going to, upon the request of the LGU, for example, if there is a conflict between two municipalities relative to their boundaries, so we can determine the boundaries in between the Palo and Tacloban, Kunhain, Gudiha, Dapit. Delimiting alienable and disposable areas. So ano yung what are those areas na pwedeng i-dispose? We can determine that. The forest land, parks, and other areas. We have determining the geographic coordinates. For example, if we are going to conduct geodetic survey, we have control survey, establishing location monuments and triangulation station. For example, for control establishment, locating roads and streets, easement, and other survey work not included in this list. So there are a lot of surveys, relocation. We have also part of the other land surveys is a topographic survey, hydro, and such. There's more surveys not included on the classification of the surveys. Okay. So the other land surveys. So as I say, so marami siyang types. So we have also verification survey. So say verification survey, these are conducted once na-approve na yung plano. For example, ikaw si GE, tapos pinapa-approve mo sa DNR yung plans, yung DL plans, but nakita doon sa projection na may error. So, or when the titled lands are reported to overlap with the other occupancy, so pwede i-verify kung tama pa talaga yung survey. So, you conduct the verification survey if there is an overlap or there is an error of the survey conducted. So next we have the amendment survey. So when we say amend, from the word itself, amend or to change. So si amendment survey lang is i-change mo lang yung boundary lines. For example, you add a corner of the property. For example, yung property mo is totally yung shape na area is rectangle. So, sa gusto mo sa longest side ng rectangle, gusto mo magkaroon ng isang corner in between of that lines. So, magdadagdag ka ng corner. Siguro, medyo harayo na hinduro. Tapos, nakukurian ka na pag-determinehan boundary kay harayo ang upat ka corner. Gusto mo butangan hin monuments habot nga, ito nga taas na side ha rectangle. So, pwede ka magdagdag hin additional na corner. But, in the amendment survey, as long as diri mo i-change an area, in which means, diri mo i-change an area, pwede ka lang magdagdag or pwede ka mag-ibanhin number of corners. For example, it also applies kung damuan corners. May kasi mga property nga, halos nala, kada iskina may da corner. Maski straight ang line, may damo nga corner. Usa ka straight ngayon line, and monument, maabot hin 5. So, pwede man usala, end to end. So may daghapon mga tagiyahin tuna gusto niya i-minimize ang number ng corners. So pwede mo makandakin amendment survey in which tatanggalon mo lang ang mga monument na kadto. So ma-change na ang bearing and distance, madiretso na siya from end to end, pero hindi mag-change ang area. So ang pormahin tuna ang mula gihap, ang number lang ng corners ang pwede mo ma-change. Okay. So next, we have segregation survey. So sa segregation survey, so these are surveys made for the purpose of segregating a portion of isolated land from the motherland. So ano ang kaibahan ng segregation sa subdivision? So si subdivision is you subdivide o itutungan mo by partition. Si segregation, for example, may da forest land or timberland. So timberland is diri mo hiya pwede applyan, di ba? Ang pwede lang i-alienate is si agricultural. Imagine there is a timberland nga dakon areas, for example, butang ta 10 hectares ang timberland. Within the timberland, may dahiya habot nga may da naukoy nga nga iya ha part diri na timberland. So hanuna nga panahon timberland siguro, but as time goes, after 30 years, after 40 years yan nag-ukoy, wala na mga timber nga to gingamit na as agricultural land. So kung gusto niya ma-applyan ito, so mag-request lahiya din or na mag-testify lahiya nga diri na ini timberland, gusto ko applyan ini yung mga magiging alienable and disposable niya akong property. So, ang bubuhaton ni GE is we are going to conduct segregation survey. So, sa segregation survey, imagine ikakat mo ito nga portion nga agricultural na within the timberland. So, ito nga ginkat mo nga portion na ginukyan hinto na tag-iya. So, pwede mo natin hikat and add to nga portion nga agricultural na ngayon niyahan property. So, pwede natin hiya applyan pwede niya siya mag-apply o registration since agricultural land yan, actual mismo nga use ng property. So that kind of survey that we are going to segregate a portion of the mother lot is called a segregation survey.